live. Okay, we're live here. Popping over to Instagram. Just 1 second, everybody. Instagram tends to be slow and tricky when it comes to this. Okay, it's working a little bit. I'm Amanda Marino, the host of Levels Without Limits, and we are officially live on all things. Thank you, StreamYard, for offering this. Just wish Instagram was just as easy as the rest of the things. Hold on, let me just change up my light because I don't love this color. There we go. That's better. Okay. Hi, I'm Amanda Marino. I am the host of Levels Without Limits, and here we are, authentic and real and vulnerable. I have a special guest today that, was definitely divinely brought to my world, accidentally, but on purpose. So Anthony Martinelli is I'll let you introduce yourself, but Anthony and I definitely, are aligned on so many of our philosophies and belief systems as far as with the clientele that we work with. And I think that's what bonded us right away. And here's to many years of collaborating and working together.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on. So my name's Anthony Martinelli. I'm the co-founder of a financial advisory firm called Jacobi Wealth Advisors. I sit now in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, which is about a half an hour outside of downtown Center City, Philadelphia. We also have an office in Northeast PA and an office in Wilmington, Delaware. And I've been a financial advisor for a little over 30 years now. So it's I like to say it's the only real job I've ever had.
Do you mind sharing your journey because it's a different journey than a lot of, financial advisors or people in wealth management. It's a different, unique journey. And I love that. So I think touch on.
Yeah, I would love to. So I guess I would go back to the first job I had. I was 8 years old. So my grandfather had immigrated from Italy. He was a shoemaker. He had his own little business, a little shoe shop. And I used to go, he started taking me there when I was 8 years old. And, I learned how to put, soles and heels on shoes. There's not much of that exists anymore today, but, I remember just being a kid and, he put me to work. He gave me the first job. He gave me a broom. Then he taught me, what he would do every day. We'd have lunch. And, it was invaluable, but unfortunately I was around 11 and he passed away suddenly. So at that time my father had started a business and I was now at the time, maybe 12, 13 years old. And, the business had some issues in it and eventually didn't survive. Right. So there was a situation in my household where, we moved with my grandmother and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I came from a very close-knit Italian family. We sat around the dinner table for 2 hours every night. And at that point, I started to see what financial stress looked like. It wasn't talked about, but it was, mom was out.
I was going to ask, was there a learning experience within your family in that moment, or was there just kind of for you?
I think it was, I was a little young to recognize it, right, at that time. But what I noticed was emotional strain, right? So I noticed maybe mom was too tired to cook dinner, so there was takeout. Dad had to run to a second job at night, so we weren't all sitting around the dinner table. So I just noticed that everybody was working like extremely hard. My grandmother was working 2 jobs. My dad was working 2 jobs. My mom had to go back into the workforce. She was a stay-at-home mom. So I saw everybody working really hard. I didn't really maybe know why at the time. So then I fast forward and I go to college and in high school, I had 2 sports. I loved food, always loved food, still do. And, I loved sports.
You're Italian. Of course you love food. That's what you do.
So I considered, going to culinary school and becoming a chef. And then I was like, I love sports. So I'd like to be a teacher and go coach sports. So I went to a college called Westchester University here outside Philadelphia and persuasive. So I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. And if it doesn't work out, I could always go back and be a teacher. And I spent 19 years at that firm.
Wow.
And then, in 2014, I co-founded Jacobi Wealth Advisors.
Wow, I love that story. I love a unique story. Like mine is unique that brought me into my industry. And, I've worked with different financial people over the years, and it's kind of like the same. They did this path. They knew they wanted to do it. And yours is unique. I love that.
Very unconventional. In our world, in the finance world, it's
Yes.
unconventional.
And which gives you, kind of, I think, the reason that makes you a little different, which I like you. So I did want to we do take questions. I just wanted to chime in and share this. So if you have any questions about money, mindset, legacy on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, unfortunately, Instagram, I'd have to hop over and I can't answer on there. But if you want to come on the other platforms, we're happy to answer questions like in between things like that. So this is your opportunity to, get those questions answered about money, mindset, and legacy from a pro. Brad here saying humble beginnings. That's a great start. Always, right?
Yeah.
If you listen, I come from, I just did this whole show thing yesterday, and I don't talk about it often, but I definitely remember it and relate it of being a really poor single mom. I had my son at 23 and living on food stamps and living in the hood and, barely knowing how I was going to put food on the table, to, being last year able to take my children out of the country, like to Asia and Africa, like just blows my mind. Still, like I would be there and I'd be like, is this real? I think if you don't forget where you come from, you can be successful, but you don't lose that part of you, right? I know you don't. I can, as you're telling that story, I feel it. You still feel it.
Yeah, I mean, there are things you never forget, right? And I think fear is a tremendous motivating factor. I mean, people have overcome, ungodly circumstances and despair to reach great heights. And I think, fear is a tremendous motivating factor. I was, in a way, I was always afraid. Like I didn't want to end up broke per se. You know what I mean? Like it really drove me.
Yeah. Well, what drove me was like, I didn't want my kids to have a messed up childhood. That was my first thing. And then also being, losing a father when I was pregnant with my daughter and being left with a t-shirt and a watch, because he didn't plan for things like that. Like I would love to leave my kids with something, some kind of legacy. I want to help them buy a home. I want to help them, different things that like I feel like my generation kind of got skipped on, like my mom and stepdad, and they got helped a lot from my grandma and things like that. But this like I don't have any help. I've done have a team and all that, but like I've done this financial stuff by myself and not having a clue of what I was doing, really just throwing crap against the wall.
Yeah.
And I have a lot to learn about finance. So, why this topic, may I ask?
Why this topic in terms of like
we chose, we went through a few topics in our conversations, with the
why money, mindset, and legacy.
Yeah, why did we choose this topic? Why would you say?
Well, I think, I really believe that money is as much about behavior as it is about numbers, right? So what I see through my career and working with so many clients is like mistakes often get made due to behavior, habits, and behaviors, right? And some of those behaviors and habits get rooted in like young, right? Because we talked about, I'm a big fan of financial literacy at younger ages.
Yes.
And I think, habits are really important. And I think, developing the right habits and the right disciplines and the right mindset about money really gives you the ability to change outcomes, right? Because there's so many things that, there's so many landmines and potholes as you go out, as life evolves, that you could step into that could really, be hurtful from a finance perspective. So I think establishing, the right habits, mindset, disciplines, and then how to translate that to legacy, because right, making money and keeping money, or I say this all the time, making money and keeping money are not the same skill set.
How many stories do you hear of people that lose it all, get it all, lose it all, get it all?
Yeah.
I know how to struggle. I can manage it. I don't want to again. I've had moments of like, moments of not having full abundance like I want, where I know how to get by because I know how to struggle, but I became the day I became okay with, if that's how it was the rest of my life, was the day things changed forever.
Yeah.
That
was the triggering, that you had a trigger moment.
Yeah. Someone said to me, well, Amanda, like, what if this is the way it always is? You have healthy kids, you have a roof over your head, like many people. And I was like, it brought me to like that moment of gratitude. Like, okay, if I don't ever get like my time, this is the way it always is. I'm okay. And that day forward, it hasn't stopped. And that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's great.
So, but I mean, we talked about a couple of things that make you unique, and like, so how have you built your company to multiple locations and in different states? Because, generally, in my experience of working with financial advisors, they have, one place, one location, or it's like, a big brand name chain, and you have multiple offices in different states. So that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, we have multiple, we work with clients in multiple states around the country. We have 3 locations, and we've grown organically. So all of our growth has been, organic, which I'm pretty proud of. In my industry, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions activity, and we are fiercely independent. And we grow organically. I think it speaks to the work that we do and the approach that we take with clients, because we also don't actively recruit other financial advisors, to our firm. I mean, we hand select talent and we get introduced, people sort of advisors that are looking for, maybe a different platform, a differentiated platform, find their way to us. So it's not, we are by no means, we consider ourselves, a boutique financial advisory firm that can offer, many of the same services that a big brand name institutional financial advisory firm can offer, but yet we're, very nimble. And, our clients, we treat our clients like family. I mean, that's, I take it, I've never taken it for granted that someone's willing to entrust us with their life savings, right? It requires a tremendous amount of trust and a tremendous amount of responsibility. And so we're very selective about advisor partners that want to work with us.
I have literally, I will say ditto to all of that. Like, another reason that we've connected is like, I have a lot of people that do what I do and have these massive contractor lists of people all around the country, coaches and people that, and listen, that's needed for what it's needed for. But for myself, I had decided early on, I wanted to handpick or have people referred. I want to know the people that I'm sending into people's homes that are wealthy. I want to know the people that are working for me. So, I mirror that. It's a family feel. We treat everybody, we won't send someone to a place that I wouldn't send my own family member to. We won't, do work that we wouldn't treat our own family, so I very much relate to that. We do have a question. This is my friend Bradley. I think I told you about my friends in South Africa who I visited last year. I'm going back this year. Oh, they're the ones that brought me to the orphanage. So
Great.
Two men take me into the back roads of
It's amazing.
And it was getting dark, and they were like, "Okay, we gotta go, Amanda. It's probably time to get out of here." Thank you, Bradley, for that. And he's a dear friend of my daughter's. So can a money mindset be built at any age? And how do I define my own money mindset? So Brad is, in transition in life, I know, and he's I think he's around my age. So I think he's wondering, can he still have build a money mindset? That's what I'm just assuming Brad's saying, knowing him.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it can be built at a young age. And I think, we see, we have a financial literacy course, and, we call Jacobi Wealth 101, where we work with, primarily teens and 20 somethings with clients' children. And it covers, habits. It covers, types of money. It covers debt. It covers credit, investing, compound savings. It covers needs versus wants. And I think, needs versus wants is something that I talk about a lot, because the 8-year-old that wants the new bike because his buddy next door got a new bike and his bike's only a year old, do you need the bike, or do you want the bike? And helping at a young age establish what's a need versus a want, because it carries over to the 40-year-old that has a 30-foot boat and wants a 50-foot boat because his buddy got a 50-foot boat.
And those are the ones that aren't educated or don't understand this, generational wealth thing, that aren't really taught it at that age. A lot of them end up struggling with alcohol, drugs, have mental health issues, go down a dark path because they don't know. First they think they're living large and living the dream. I don't have to work, I'm good. But if they understand the value and the education you provide, you're preventing people from coming to my care, which I love.
Right. Yeah. And I think relative to the question of how do you develop your own money mindset, I think everybody has their own definition of what money means to them. And it's not just, becoming rich or wealthy. I mean, I know plenty of people that they make very good income. They've kept their expenses very manageable. They have very little debt, and they coach all their kids' sports. They're at every event, right? And you probably know the same. Like, I know a lot of extremely wealthy people that I'll say are maybe depressed or unhappy. The money isn't bringing them happiness. They haven't really defined what wealth truly means to them. So I think, based on your own goals and your own circumstances and situation, you have to take some time and think about what money allows you to do, right? I mean, the freedom that it may allow you, the lifestyle that may allow you, what's important to you. And I don't think it's ever too late to develop that mindset, but the younger building blocks and principles, like, the better it's going to evolve. Like, your money mindset's going to evolve as your life evolves, as your career evolves. You may have a career change, your family evolves. Maybe you're going through, maybe you're going through a divorce, right? And you were a stay-at-home mom and really never paid bills and didn't handle the finances, right? You really didn't have an identity, a money identity, a money mindset. Now suddenly you're forced to adopt one.
Yeah, no, those are such great examples. And I remember when I left my marriage and I chose to get divorced, but I was able to do that. I was able to move out and able to take care of myself. I had a lot of women reach out to me, and they were like kind of angry, but not, saying, like, I wish I could have left. I can't. I haven't worked in this long. I have nothing. And I was like, well, if that's how you feel, start building something. You know what I mean? Like, start building. So, because I've always worked, so it's always been important for me to have my own. I have my own bank account. Like, I don't. I have a joint with my partner, but like, I'm responsible for my own finances. So it's always been important to me. And I've always been able to, money just didn't, I used to think it was like bad to say that I wanted to make money because I didn't feel like it was spiritual. Now what money to me is, like, the value of it is what I can, the experiences I can have with my family. That's been the greatest gift for me, the experiences that I am able to do, how I can take time to do things, take time off, take time to really be present with them, like driving the coast of California with my daughter. That's a benefit of, like, I didn't have that before. When my daughter doesn't remember, my son remembers me very poor, which, he's extremely humble. But there's so many different avenues of this. But yeah, I'm still working on my money mindset. That wanting money isn't bad. I've finally got that one in my head, right? Wanting to be successful and build something for my kids is not bad. And I just have to never forget where I came from and remain in gratitude.
Well, and I think that's, a great point, because, the money is, the joy is in the experiences, right? The wealth is in the experiences. It's not in the things, because what happens is people buy things, right? They buy toys, whatever that case may be. They upgrade their car, they upgrade their, watches, handbags, whatever the case may be. And what happens quickly, within a matter of a couple of weeks, usually, you might get that dopamine hit, I say, right? Where you have that quick dopamine hit where it makes you feel great. But then in a couple of weeks, it's like meaningless. Like, you quickly return to baseline, and then you're on to the next thing that you want to chase, right? So I'll be happy when I get here. I'll be happy when I'm making X. I'll be happy when I get this job. And then you get there and you're like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Because it's an inside job. That's what I do for a living, right? So, like, people reach outside themselves, whether it's shopping, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, porn, gambling, all the things, to reach outside yourself. They're temporarily going to fix it, but then they stop working. They don't even temporarily fix after a while. So I just wanted to read, this is my mom. She said, love this. So I just had to say,
oh, fantastic.
Brad said, thank you. Great answer. And I know he really related to that. So I will get with him later. Anything else on that before I hop into the next question?
No, we can go. Let's fire away.
So why is understanding how to manage your assets and finances more important in today's landscape than ever?
I think, yeah.
I'll start with it's a two-part question. We'll start with part one.
So I think there's a couple reasons. One is, things are really expensive, right? So your money, a dollar just doesn't go as far today as it used to. Like when you look around and you look at, things have gotten incredibly expensive. When you look at
Groceries, gas.
groceries, cars, homes. I mean, take 3 kids to Chick-fil-A, right? It used to be whatever it was, 15, $20. Now you take 3 kids to Chick-fil-A, it's $70 by the time you walk out, right? So things are really expensive. So if you want to stretch dollars and make money last, right, you need to learn how to take care of money and protect it and grow it, right? So that's one aspect. The second aspect is longevity, right? With medical advancements, people are living longer and the technology continues to advance and get better. So when you look at life expectancy, and you have long longevity, like that can multiply.
I'm living long. I'm claiming it.
There you go. But that, and hopefully we all do, right? But that could multiply financial issues, right? Because you need your money, to last longer. And those longevity and inflation are two real key factors. But there's also the unexpected, right? So it's interesting. Like the Pew Research Center in 2024 did a study that said 59% of parents are providing some level of financial support to children between the ages of 18 and 34, right? So when you think about
it, they're doing it till age 50.
Yeah, and that's a real problem.
Families are fully funding their kid who is mentally ill or addicted or whatever at 50, who they are like an 18-year-old. So I deal with that. Like, and just so you know, my backup plan is my son's in fire academy, and firefighters still have a good retirement. So my son, the fireman, will be taking care of me if all else fails. Yeah, there's very few jobs now that offer that. Like I have, my own 401k, and I'm establishing my business partner hers. My SEP IRA, sorry. But yeah, different things like that are.
Yeah, but everybody wants to help their children, right? But like you could get waylaid by some of these expenses that you maybe didn't build into your financial plan. Like I use the example, like, I have a daughter that went through, IVF, like trying to conceive, and like that's a really dark, like emotional, expensive place to be, right? So thank God I was in a position where I was able to provide some help, but like I didn't have that built into a financial plan, right?
Yeah, the
unknown. So I think managing your finances to be able to make your dollar go further is critical, because it's not even just the known; it's the unknown things are what can really sidetrack you.
And there's always unknowns, constantly. Always. We all have them. So on to the second part of the question is, what is something you wish every person was educated on that is not taught, that can help our young adults in their lives and their future? Which is, I think you touched on your program, but I think that's a good time to touch on that. But we'll start. What is something or a few things that you wish that people were taught?
Yeah, I think basic financial literacy. Like the schools do not teach basic financial literacy. No. Right? Kids just don't learn it. Like I taught an 8th grade class, and the kids loved it. Like it was a differentiated topic, and they ate it up. They just loved it. And when you think about things like, budgeting, just even credit, like I'm not sure what the average credit score is, but if you look at, not understanding how credit can impact your life as you go through college, and then you're going to enter the workforce, or as a young adult, it impacts everything. What you pay for car insurance, your mortgages, like all these different things. And what happens is, like, if your credit's in the tank and you're 25 years old, what happens? You want to go buy a home, like you want to go buy a car. Unfortunately, sometimes that goes back to parents, and now you're dumping your problem in your parents' lap, because then they have to co-sign debt for you, right, at some point. So when you think of budgeting, credit, savings, like time and compound interest, like, showing an 8th grader, if he put away, $50 a month of his allowance, like what that could grow to potentially when he was 50 years old, or, starting late, like time and compound interest, like the 20-year-old that starts saving versus the 30-year-old that starts saving the same amount of money. Like the 20-year-old is going to have significantly more because of the time value of money. But then you also have things like, good debt, like good debt and bad debt. They don't teach good debt and bad debt. So I used an example like, you want the latest and greatest, 70-inch flat screen TV that Best Buy is selling for, $3,000 because it's the newest model. And then, you take out a credit card and you don't pay the whole thing off, and then you get hit with 29% interest. So you end up spending $6,000 on a TV that costs $3,000, and then the next model comes out 3 years later, and the model they're selling it for $1,500 because of technology advance. It's like appreciation versus depreciation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? These concepts are not taught.
No, I want to go back to your first one about like balancing checkbooks and credit. Like I turned 18 and I got a credit. I had a checkbook very young because I was in modeling and acting. So I had, sorry, Mom, but she gave me access to my modeling and acting money, which was a lot at 15 years old. And I definitely did not know what I was doing. I could go take out deposits. I could go I'd write checks. I got credit cards. And I put my credit in the tank, because I did not know. And I don't believe at the time my mom knew to educate me on that, right? So there went all the money from that. And then, I had to rebuild all my credit in my 20s. And it took years. Nobody bailed me out of anything. I had to rebuild it, work with people that do that, write letters, like all different things, and then rebuild my credit to where it is today. But that didn't happen until like early 30s. Took a long time.
It takes a long time. Yeah.
And no credit is also bad, correct? Like
correct.
No credit. You have to so teaching our kids, yes, get one card. Yes, get this, but pay early, pay more than it is due, like things like that. You know?
I had a client's son, reach out to me. He's 23 years old, super smart, went to a, prestigious college, is working in an investment bank on Wall Street. He sends me his credit report and he says, I can't figure out why my credit score is low. And it wasn't terrible. It wasn't as high as he wanted it to be.
Right.
So I went through the factors that were impacting his credit and, the utilization factors. And we pinpointed some different things to help him, because he wanted to raise his score. He was at like 690. He's like, I want to get my score up. I pay all my bills on time and I can't figure out why my score isn't increasing. And there was a handful of factors that really impact credit that I went through with him, and he started to, implement some of those changes. So little things like that are really important.
Yeah. And if you don't know, ask, if you don't know these things, there are people to reach out to educate, such as Anthony. I mean, if you have him as your advisor or lucky enough to have him as your friend, there are people out there that can educate. So if you don't know how to educate your children because you also don't know yourself, I still feel like I'm still learning. So I'm totally open to all the education. So I think awareness, education, and, teaching our kids, we can't just drop them off at school and college and expect them to learn all the life skills. It just isn't real, mental health. They're not taught how to be emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, how to ask for help, in my line of work.
Yeah.
It's shameful. It's taboo in some families, so all these things. So what is something that's a common mistake that you see among people that generate, good amount of revenue and never financially get ahead and prepare for their future, save or require assets?
Yeah, great question. I get that question a lot. And I think the biggest thing we see is I'll call it lifestyle inflation.
Is what?
Lifestyle inflation.
Oh, okay. I thought you said alcoholic lifestyle.
No, yeah, lifestyle inflation, or sometimes we call it lifestyle creep, your lifestyle continues to creep upward.
Yes.
Because, you get a raise and then, maybe you get a nicer car, or, you upgrade your home, or, you have some extra money set aside. You're not, I say attach a purpose to every dollar, right? So, when you get paid, every dollar should have a purpose. You should be able to automate a percentage of savings, where's every dollar going? And I think what happens is, people get some money and then they want to spend it, right? Or they get a raise or a promotion, they want to spend it, or they've grinded, they grind. They finally get to the point where maybe in business where they start to make some money, and then they start to spend too much. So I see a lot, two things that make it challenging are I always say are too much house and too much car. Like if you have too much house and too much car, that can have a major impact because they're really big expenditures. And then, the other thing is taxes. Like if you get behind on taxes, that especially as a business owner, like that could be a real problem.
Did it one year and learned the hard lesson. Actually, everything you've shared, I've been through.
Well, you're not alone. I mean, believe me, it's just common behavior.
But I've gone through all of it, and then there became a place where I was like, oh, well, I struggled for so long that like I deserve this.
Yeah, right.
Too.
Well,
like,
you talk yourself into
starting from the bottom, and like I work to here. I deserve this. I deserve to do what I want and buy what I want when I want. Like I literally.
Exactly. I mean, hey, I had a horrible week. I deserve this handbag, and next thing you know, it's you put $5,000 on a credit card or whatever, even if it's cash. Like it's so those types of behaviors. I think that lifestyle inflation
to watch out
is a big one, and then not having budgeting is important too. I might call it the 50-30-20 rule. Like attaching 50% of your income to what we refer to as needs, your basic needs: food, clothing, housing, shelter, those sort of things. And then 30% on wants, and then 20% on the future, which could be emergency fund investing, midterm investing, savings, retirement planning, those sort of things. Like if you could stay inside that 20% savings corridor, like in that range, you preferably 20 to 25%, like you should position yourself like really, really well. But when you have lifestyle inflation, studies show in our society today that like savings rates are really compressed.
Yeah. What is 30% for again? I'm just typing it in here in the chat.
Wants. So, wants would be, dining out, travel, vacations, like those sorts of things.
20% is future.
So I think that's, you really can be, be compromised if your savings rate is extremely low and you don't have emergency savings, because as we talked about earlier, the unknown comes up, and then that could really throw you for a loop.
Yeah. And it comes. This is life on life.
Always comes.
So in the trend of financial success, like what is a certain trend and mindset that you see that's been where an individual has been taught the financial responsibility in their family system versus those who do not have the proper understanding or education or knowledge? Do you see?
I think the trend is, the one thing about the trend and certain principles that I see in people that are financially successful, it's disciplines and habits, right? It's really habits and discipline. And actually it's not like this, like what I'll refer to as like the sexy exotic stuff, like get rich quick schemes. Like you see this stuff like all over social media today, right? I mean, you're down in South Florida, like how many people do you see driving around in Lambos and Ferraris and Phantom Rolls Royces and all these things? How much is of it real and how much is of it is fake? I would venture to say that a lot of it, not that there's not real wealth there, but there's also a lot of fake imitation wealth.
Well, there's like Palm Beach Island, which is like old money, and then I'm not going to say certain areas because I'm like friends with a lot. But then there's like the new money, and it's like the transient, like maybe they're going to get it for a minute and they're going to lose it areas, in South Florida. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. And there's an amount of DMs I get on people thinking that they're going to sell me on some nonsense or emails. Like it's wild. And the kind of price points people ask too.
Yeah, there's all types of these things that are out there today. And the reality is there's not really a get rich quick scheme, right? It's about discipline and habit. I use the example, I did a post on LinkedIn. It was an individual named Ronald Reed. No one's probably ever heard of him. He was, in his 80s. He was he was a maintenance man, worked at JCPenney for years on a very meager income. When he died, he left $8 million to like his local, he donated to charities that he cared about. He died with like an 8, and it was all like blue chip stocks, like all the greatest, he just, he always save. Now, you also have to have a life and have some fun too. So my point back in establishing parameters, that 50-30-20, right? Like if you're not, it's the boring stuff that works, right? It's And the other thing is not acting out of fear and emotion. So it's not making, mistakes per se too. Like I'll give an example. Like I talked earlier, like I went to dinner with a great client. This was like 2 months ago. It was a husband and a wife, and they had some pretty significant excess cash laying around, right? So they're trying to figure out, like, this was literally like a conversation and then an argument that basically took place. Like he wanted to buy a $300,000 boat. Oh, I'm sorry. She wanted them to buy a $300,000 boat. They already had a boat. They wanted a bigger boat. He wanted a $200,000 Porsche, right? So I went through the conversation and I said, listen, and he drives a construction truck like 90% of the time. So it was like, all right, how many times a month are you going to drive this Porsche? And he was like, realistically, like 2 times a month. We're in Pennsylvania. The winters are rough. The roads are horrible. So I'm like, all right, you're going to spend like $200,000 to drive the car like twice a month. I'm like, and I said, let's talk about the boat, right? And I said, how many times are you going to use the boat? It has a house at the Jersey Shore. And
maintenance of the boat, crew of the boat.
Not even a crew. Like this was like a 33-foot boat or something. Nice, expensive boat. No crew.
Maintenance.
But when we broke it down, I said, how many times a summer are you going to use it? And he was like, realistically, with the kids are in sports, they're in camp, like I'm using the boat like maybe 8 times a summer. Between the fuel, we did like cost per usage. So I'm looking at both of them like, so you're going to spend $200 on the Porsche that you're going to drive like, 20 times a year, or you're going to spend $300,000 on the boat. So I slowed them down, right? They didn't do it. So this parlays into my story. I talked to them a week ago. A house comes along on the bay where they now could upgrade their house and have an open water view, right? Mm-hmm. So this house, one of those kind of like off-market deals. They knew someone. They got in before the crowd got in. Mm-hmm. They friends of the owners and friends of the owners, and one of these just stars align type of deal, right? Yeah. They end up getting this house, which was a great investment opportunity. There's a top floor. The couple's in their 80s. They could develop this into a $10 million property one day. Even if they didn't do that, they have a beautiful home on the bay, in the open bay. And he said to me, you know what? Thank you for slowing me down, because like if I would have bought the boat or the Porsche, I wouldn't have had the money to close on this deal.
Yeah, amen. I love that story.
Right. So to me, like people say, financial advisors, it's investing, and we don't all do. We do elements of the same thing, but I think what makes us a little bit different is being able to be this mental sparring partner that steps in that says, hey, not only think about this, but let's maybe, if we can, put some math behind it and really talk about like what this really looks like. And sometimes the role is just to slow them down, or when you have these crazy situations like COVID, or I've been through the tech crash and COVID, financial crisis in 2008, COVID, and all these different things. Like, oh my God, the stock market's crashing. I'm selling my retirement. I have my SEP. I'm going to liquidate it, put it all in cash because I'm going to lose all my money.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the emotional aspect of finance that is really kind of huge, where there's value in the margins there, and having an advisor that can help with that.
Yeah. So make sure you're getting someone that isn't just like, like you're obviously so invested in your, the people like I am, people that trust me with their families and their livelihood and their mental health, and like sometimes like truly life or death situations. Like, I mean, that is a huge honor. And like you're being, given similar responsibilities with people's lives and their finances and their future, and like you're all in. So I did see this question above, and I'm going to ask it. Can you offer someone with no understanding of financial experiences who's come into wealth where they should start? Like someone that's maybe left some money, or like comes into a trust, or they're in charge of?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first comment I will make is, I think there's a one of the falsehoods of money is that people that have a lot of knowledge have a lot of money, have a lot of financial knowledge. And I can tell you that there's very little correlation between wealth and financial knowledge. You would be shocked at some of the wealth I see out there where, I'll walk into someone that may have, very, tens of millions of dollars of net worth, and they don't have an estate plan. Like, they don't have a will, they don't have estate planning documents, like, just crazy stuff, right? So there's really not a correlation. So the first thing is, like, there's a natural anxiety or a fear if you're coming into money, or where do I get started? Because you feel like you have to be knowledgeable to be successful, to be able to build wealth. And the reality is that's not true.
I say that you. That's my answer.
What's that? Hire, talk.
Call Anthony.
Call me. Look, I'm available. So yes, you can always call me. But no, to your point, like, I think, you want to investigate and do your due diligence and vet financial advisors, because they could give you a roadmap. You want to have a roadmap and a place to start. There's some basic building blocks if you're just getting started, but then you can get into more, like you mentioned, inheritance. Maybe you're like many clients that have exited their businesses, and they went from highly illiquid, where they put everything into their company, their entire life, and now they went and had little liquidity because they put everything in the business, and now they're faced with this liquidity event where now they're going to be not only be completely liquid, but they're also about to lose their identity, because their entire identity was this business that they built over 20 or 30 years, right? So they have this identity crisis too. So there's talk about.
It's so important that we work together, because so much of this it just flows into one another.
Well, you're going to put some special programs together for us.
Yeah. And if anyone who does what I did, they're going to call Anthony. Sorry, we're loyal.
I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I mean, it's like, because it's not, people think, oh, it's just investing, but it goes way. It's, you have investing, you have taxes, you have business succession and exit planning, you have estate planning, you have asset protection, cash flow guidance, retirement, like on Social Security, is people struggling with, long-term care for their parents. Like, there's so many different aspects of finance. Again, it creates fear and procrastination to get started. But I think you have to get started. Yeah, you just have to get started and find the right, the right team to advise you. In some cases, it's usually, some cases it's one advisor, in some cases it's a team.
Yeah, this isn't like something, like, again, that we were taught, right? So some of us don't know. Like, I've learned so many things about business as I've gone, with mistakes and things, and like with my credit, I learned the hard way. But I would love from here on, as a 45-year-old professional and business owner, to learn the right way, right, from this place forward. So
another thing too, Amanda, I'll comment, like, when you have the knowledge, like, you can really, like, I'll say, accelerate your growth.
Yeah.
Like, I see it, I'm learning
the hard way. I'm good. I've learned a lot of things the hard way, but I'm kind of at that. No more learning the hard way. Like, I want to learn the right way.
Yeah, you could really, and today there's so much knowledge available, right? Yeah. There's, you have billionaires that do podcasts that give away information for free, books. There's so many podcasts and live streams like we're doing, and books. Like, you can really educate yourself quickly. And I'll say it's never too late. I was with a 38-year-old client 2 weeks ago, very successful, getting ready to sell his business, and he had regret. He was like, I wish I had started to do this stuff earlier. And he started working when he was, 14 years old. And I said, listen,
can't do the coulda-couldas.
Yeah, look at the knowledge that you've accumulated. I'm like, if you start a new business today, how quickly, knowing what you know now, how quickly could you grow that business to the revenue you're doing today versus the business you're getting ready to exit? He goes, I could have built this business in 3 years, knowing what I know today. I'm like, well, then don't beat yourself up,
Yeah. On the same note, I would never change my path, right? But now, where I am now, I don't. That is like a behind me thing. I would not change learning the hard way. I had to learn the hard way in a lot of things. I do want to get into one more question before we have to wrap up, because it's an important one. Thankfully, I've never allowed this to come into my relationships, but this is a problem. What are the biggest money problems you see in families, marriages? You see so many marriages separate because of financial distress. I refuse to allow that into my life. I'm very rare in that. And then, even my two ex-husbands, I was like, let's just split it down the middle. Like, I don't care. I wasn't trying to take anything. I wasn't trying to F anybody, like I don't believe in that. And how can we prevent and do better?
Yeah, I think for families, it's establishing a money mindset and a framework of communication, right? Because what I found is, number one, like to be able to pass this down to the generationally, right? You have to be prepared yourself, right? So chances are, if you're not good with money, like if you're spending every dollar you make and you have all this credit card debt and like and you're just not good with money, like you're not going to be able to teach your children how to be good with money, right? So more things, I always like to say, more things get caught than taught with kids. So you want to be a good steward of money yourself, but then you also, I found that families that maybe where money is scarce or there's money issues, like there's a shame aspect of it involved. So
yeah, don't be
they
ashamed.
don't want to talk about it.
You're in the struggle. Don't be ashamed, because listen, I've been in the struggle. Anthony's been in the struggle.
And then the other thing is the people that the people that do have significant wealth, they don't want to talk about it because they don't want their kids to know how much money they have, right? And we try to shift their perspective to say, you need to get them ready, right? Because they need to be ready to receive. Like you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars you could spend $100,000 on the best estate planning firm in the country and have the most sophisticated trust in the world. Like it's not preparing the kids to receive the money.
And then you know what that's going to happen? Then that trust is going to bring on next level wellness and behavioral health to help make sure that they're doing the things they need to do to stay on track, because they've gone down the wrong path with not understanding their finances and how to handle them, and with the loss of their family or whatever has gone on, whatever number of things. Like this could be preventative from people going down a dark path, because trust bring us on because they're not in the area of the client. They can't see them day to day. Like we're able to like make sure that they're okay and that they're, staying on track. And sometimes it's not perfect. It's ugly,
Right.
But this will prevent it.
Yeah, well, it helps. I mean, because money's very emotional. It creates expectations. It creates emotion and expectations in families. So the families that succeed with this develop a framework. We work with families. They develop a family constitution. They have family meetings. Maybe they wrap an experiential experience into it. Like, it's a family retreat. As far as marriages go, because I'll touch on that. Because that's finances in marriage can be difficult. I found that when I look at it, I generally say there's like two types of people in a marriage. You have savers and spenders, like typically, right?
Yeah.
You have two savers together, things, generally go, from a monetary standpoint, things are usually good in terms of finances. And then you have, one saver.
I'm the spender.
You're the spender. So you want to have yin and yang, right?
He's not by any means cheap, because I don't like cheap either. I'm sorry. Cheap is like,
no, I'm not cheap.
No cheap, but being mindful and really like conscientious about money. I appreciate that. And I need that. Yeah. I need that. I am smart though, and I'm investing things and like, putting away money. Like I'm not like ravish, but I definitely am the spender. So,
well, when you have a saver and a spender, right? Let's say you want to go out and say, I'm going to go buy a $100,000 car. Like it's like there needs to be a framework for compromise, like somewhere, like along the way, there needs to be communication around like saving, budgeting, and large purchases. I find that the sort of maybe the dumpster fire is when you have two spenders. Like when you have two spenders, it usually doesn't end well from a financial perspective, because then strain, there's, oftentimes there's, credit card debt, strain, and then it goes, that's a whole
outside facade, because like having all the things, but being cash flow and asset broke, then they are not cool.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately very prevalent, you see it.
Just don't talk to a financial advisor, bring a therapist in, like don't let money ruin your family or your marriage. And what I was thinking, there's vision boards that we do, like people do vision boards or the mind movies or things like that. You can do that with your money mindset. Like I think that would be creative. Yeah. Like what does money mean to you, and what do you want? What is the value of it? And and maybe bring your family into what's theirs. And so maybe doing something creative like that, to kind of help.
I think that's a great idea. And I encourage like a financial meeting, like a week, like a calendar entry, like sit down, with your spouse or significant other, like, or if you're on your own, like if you're just a single professional, like have a financial meeting, build an agenda into that financial meeting, into the key things the key check downs that you're going to look at like on a weekly basis. Cause like, the gyms are packed January 2nd and like, February 1st, like, they're half empty, right? New Year's resolutions. The same thing happens with finance, but you need those small wins, like those small wins. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces on earth.
Yeah.
So if you get these small wins, you will build tremendous momentum, and you may not even recognize where you were like 2 years previously if you do the right things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I really appreciate your insight and all of your experience and sharing this with my following. I think that people will definitely get something out of it. Definitely my clients will. And for anybody out there, we can all do better in this area, I feel like. And I'm eager to learn more, just by talking to you. Knowing that I've gone through everything you've talked about is pretty interesting.
I enjoyed it. I really appreciate you letting me be part of it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so before I get into the business part of the end, where can people find you? Like any last final words, anything you want to share?
Yeah, yes. So you could go to jacobiwealth.com, www.jacobi, Jacobi,
I'm going to put it in the chat. Jacobi
wealth.com. And we have, newsletters there that you could sign up for. We have our Wealthy and Wise newsletter. We have our exit strategies newsletter for business owners. So we have an info@jacobi.com email box. And then I'm on LinkedIn too. So that's my primary social channel. So you could connect with me on LinkedIn and we could connect, and you could send me direct messages as well.
Where did the name come from?
Believe it or not, Gustav Jacobi was a famous German algebraist in the 1800s, whose teaching philosophy was to solve problems by working them through backward, which we believe is invaluable when it comes to investing and finance. Right, find out what could blow you up and try to reverse engineer that. So.
Love that.
Yeah, we don't have anybody named Jacobi here. That's kind of where the name comes from.
Like a family thing, or but I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah. If you look him up, he's like a psycho-looking guy with some crazy hair, but apparently he was really, really smart. So
love that. So it does have purpose behind it. Like Next Level's logo is a feather, and the feather is a very spiritual thing of restarting. And I didn't even know that at first. When I did like a brand deep dive, the feather actually has like this beautiful meaning, which
I didn't know that either. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was just the feather logo was just kind of like a thought, and then I found out the meaning. So
that's really cool.
So this is a disclosure for your team.
Thank you.
Hold on. Oops.
You got to keep me out of trouble.
Yes. So because disclosure. Okay. All investing involves risk. This is a disclosure for Jacobi Wellness and Jacobi Financial Services and their team. So all investing involves risk, including potential loss of principal. And individual needs and circumstances will vary. Individual needs and circumstances will vary. Securities offered through LPL Financial member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advice offered through Jacobi Capital Management LLC, a registered investment advisor. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Jacobi Capital Management LLC and Jacobi Wealth Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial. I'm Amanda Marino.
Great job, Amanda. Thank you.
Owner of Next Level Wellness Behavioral Health, AmandaMarinoSpeaks.com. Please reach out to me, anything mental health wise, any questions you have, co-parenting, if you need a speaker. I love to be a raw, vulnerable speaker on a stage. And, I'm here for anything. I will always answer my DMs. And if I miss it, somebody will catch it on my team for me. But this is Levels Without Limits. And I think, Anthony, you were a fantastic guest. So let's give Anthony a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
All right. Find me at Amanda Marino Official all around, or Google me. Amanda Marino. Thank you so much. Don't hang up, Anthony. I'm just going to end the stream.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a beautiful and blessed Tuesday.